I've had the opportunity to talk with many people who love doing what they do. And one of the things I know about this person that's coming up, they've been able to take that word no, flip it, and turn it on. Because I know being told no pushes one to be creative. You have to be, and you have to create what you want. And one of the things that this person that I'm about to introduce has built her own seat at the table. You hear me? And so I know many people have a vision and they know what God has placed in their heart. But the thing is, are you going after it? From facing rejection to building her own brand, Kelsey Nicole Nelson, an award-winning broadcast journalist, George Washington University professor, 2 times Presidential Lifetime Achievement Awardee, and business owner, emphasizes the power of networking, preparation, and never giving up on your dreams. Now, she also reminds us that success is not just about reaching your own individual goals, but also about uplifting others along the way. Now, get ready to be motivated and empowered as Kelsey shares her wisdom on navigating challenges, knowing your worth, becoming the best version of you. Let's go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Derek Wells, Why Not You? And today my guest is none other than Kelsey Nicole Nelson. This one, I'm excited about having her on because of her one. It's not only her background, but because of her love to help and work with youth and elevate them to think outside the box because it's definitely needed. I mean, she's an entrepreneur, an award-winning freelance journalist. She's worked with Bally Sports, ESPN, Fox Sports. Welcome, Kelsey Nicole Nelson, to the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Like, I'm humbled to be here with you. So thank you so much for sharing your platform with me.
You are welcome. You are welcome. So look, before we just kind of get into it, I want to share a quote with you and let me know like how this quote actually resonates
let's
with
do
you.
it.
And it's from Pam Oliver. Now you only have but so much energy. Focus on the right things, the positive things. I'm not thinking about what anyone else has to say. I have a job to do. I try not to focus on the things I can't control. If I can't control it, I don't worry about it.
Hmm. I love that. Well, first off, you're talking about a quote from one of the goats of
Right.
the broadcast industry, right? So once you said it was from Pam Oliver, all of us knew it was going to be a powerful, exceptional quote. But everything I think she said resonates so much. Like for me, I'm one person that I hope that everybody I've been around or touched has realized I try to bring positive energy to any room I'm in, right? And that's just part of my brand. Like when you meet me, I'm going to smile first at you, and then hopefully we're going to have a good conversation. I'm just very big on that because first impressions matter, right? And then what she's about, like, you can only control what you can control. And I think that's one of the hardest things to learn in life, right?
Yeah.
So many of us want things, but we don't control it, right? It's out of our hands. I'm a woman of faith, to me, the man above controls it, right? And sometimes not understand everything, but that's why life is a journey, right? And you go through different things. I think many times too, you realize sometimes those things you didn't get was him protecting you or preparing you, right, for something bigger, protecting you from something that you shouldn't have. So and then I think she's a living, breathing example of that. Like Pam Oliver has a storied career, right, in the broadcast journalism industry. She has pioneered through a lot.
She has, right?
Like she embodies again just strength. And honestly, like what she described is what the plight of a Black woman, if I'm honest with you, right? Knowing how to bring energy into a room and being yourself, but also just knowing that you can get through whatever you need to get through. But unfortunately, again, you don't control everything. So I love that quote. I am a woman of quotes. If I've ever emailed you, I end everything with quote. If you've ever heard me speak, I am going to have a quote.
You are.
They speak positive things, into existence. So it's a powerful one. It resonated with me immediately. And hopefully it resonated with others out there as well. Because not just for broadcast industry folks, that's for every single person.
Every single person.
Out there. So I love it.
That's right. I mean, because you just think about like how many people just they get so consumed with what other people think or trying to project this image. And that in the image that they really are trying to project doesn't even align with who they are, what's on the inside of them. And so it's like they're living a false life to be something that they're not.
Right.
It's a tragedy.
Right. And that's no life to live, right?
It's
like
not.
I think You would spend to me, I'd spend too much energy trying to be like somebody else, right? Like
Right.
life is hard enough as you are. So
That's
yet alone, you having to think every day how to be somebody else. And like you said, I think when you live a false narrative and under false pretenses, everything's harder because you have to think more to kind of be that person each day. For
yeah.
me, I'm unapologetically me, which you
That's
get with
right.
and one of the things I like when I meet people, especially if they've only known me on social media, they're like, you're just like you come across. And I
Right.
know what you mean, and it means a lot to me though, because this is how I am. Like what you see here is what you see if you get me, in person.
Right.
Even if I'm just waking up, I might need a quick yawn, but you still are going to get me in my full best self. And so I hope people see that because that's why you are uniquely you. And that's like, for me, it's why with my brand, I do try to like push all of me through that. I think
Yeah.
social media is one of the great things, but what I've had to learn is honestly kind of how to be vulnerable too. Like it's so easy
Oh,
to post your wins, right, on social
right.
media. And again, I grew up in a household where it was you had to be a strong Black woman, right? So that's so long what I had to portray. But then as I got older, I realized like it's okay to showcase your pitfalls. That's how people can better
Right.
your journey. And honestly, that's kind of what propelled me into the motivational speaking realm. Is I think when people saw that, it's like, oh, you are just like me, and I am.
Right.
I am. Don't let things fool you. I mean, I've had wins, but I've had a lot of losses, right? And I think
Right.
though through those losses, though, again, I've learned kind of how to propel and get to the next game, right? In terms of
Right.
sport terms. And I think that's been one of the most valuable things that I've learned. So, like you said, it's so easy to maybe feel like you can't be yourself in a world
Uh-huh.
where the imposter syndrome is real and they
Right.
feeling like they don't fit in a certain box or quota. But I've always been a person, I can't fit in any box. That's why like I've never done just one thing. I've never had just one job. Like that's just never been me. So like when
Yeah.
people have tried to throw me in those boxes, I've had to kick down those sides and say, look, that's not going to work for me. Like if
Yeah.
you want me, this is kind of be everything that you get and everything that comes with me.
And the crazy thing about it, you can't have imposter syndrome being in the work, being in the line of work that you have. You have to be able to ask questions, right? Otherwise,
Yeah, yeah. And then if you
yeah.
ask questions, you have to also be able to take them. I tell them that all the time, when they're like, is there anything you don't want to ask? I'm like, look, I'm a journalist for a living, so I have to get what I take. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like you, at least to me, right? To be my full authentic self. I can't ask for somebody else to be that if
Yeah.
I'm not being that, right? And I think that's honestly how you are a better, for me, how I am a better journalist is because again, I get what I take. And for someone to connect with me, even when you're speaking, like even when I'm
Hmm.
teaching class, I have to find a way to connect with folks, right? And so
Right.
I have to be able to connect with them and ask them things in a way that they're also able to ask me. It's not one-sided to me. Every relationship, is two-sided, and hopefully it's going to be mutually beneficial for both parties or both folks involved.
Right. So I mean, what I mean, because you're teaching at the university, you're speaking to youth, you're coaching. Like, where do you think that passion actually came from to actually teach and give back?
Oh my gosh, it's easy for me. It's my parents. Like,
Yeah.
for me, my parents instilled in me very early, we were always out as a family doing things together,
Yeah.
volunteer drives and,
Yeah.
giving what we had back. And so I'm thankful to them, right? Because they taught me the importance of community early. I think
Right.
also so many caring adults, I always share that I went to so many daycares growing up because my parents worked so much. I had so many caring adults, in my life. And so Sandra said early, lifting as you climb,
Yeah.
that it takes a village, right? And
Right.
so, I was beneficial. My first experiences to sporting events were because we were given tickets as a family, right? And so for me, it's kind of life full circle, right? So what can you
Right.
do to give back to people? Because if you just win, what does that do for anybody else if you're not
Right.
lifting up others along the way? So I think my dad, Joe Nelson, and my mother, Libby Amber Nelson, for everything that they instilled in me. I'll give their government names on
That's
here.
right.
They're not on social though, so don't worry. But it's great to just I'm thankful though, like those early lessons. And of course, when you're a kid, you don't realize it. You just
Yeah.
enjoy it, right? You're out with your family, you're
Yeah.
giving back. The church family, we were always in
Right.
church, volunteering and whatever needed to be done. Like it was no question we would do it. And I think,
Yeah.
that just stayed with me in the long run. And so now honestly, it's a part of me and who I am.
Yeah.
Because again, I want people to know that like for me, legacy is so important. And
Hmm.
what I leave when what I want to leave when I leave from this world is just hopefully that Kelsey Nelson was a caring, individual that always gave of her time, and nothing
Right.
too big for her, right? I'm a
Right.
person like everybody else. So, whatever I can do to make something better or make something more positive for somebody, I'm going to do it. So it's just that simple.
Yeah. And and I think like one of the things that you said that's I mean is huge, and
Yeah.
that's your parents. I mean, because you think about like how many youth nowadays, or just people in general, are raised by a single parent.
Yeah.
I mean, my folks, they divorced when I was 7 years old, and I chose to live with my mom. And then, what was it? My freshman year in high school, I ended up transitioning and moving back to live with my dad.
Hmm.
But it was, you just the parenting styles are totally different.
Right. Right.
Mom's was more hands-on, and one of the reasons why I had to go move back with pops because I was just messing up in school, and so she gave me an ultimatum. She was like Angela Bassett in Boys in the Hood.
Ooh.
Derek, okay, you need to sign this contract.
What you gonna do?
What you gonna do,
A or
right?
B?
Right. So, but at the same time, that was one of those defining moments when I really had to dig deep and rely on myself and then actually believe because dude, I was
Yeah.
struggling.
Mm.
And when she gave me that ultimatum, it was like, okay, I need to step my game up. And so I
Yeah.
actually went from like a D student to an A student. Um, but so that just kind of lets you know like the power of just belief and having that
Yes.
mindset.
Yes.
Yeah. But at the same time, I am, I make that transition, then I go live with Pops. Pops is more hand off. There, did you do your homework? Yeah, Dad, I did it. Then why the school call and talking about you missed this assignment?
Really? What had happened was,
Well, but
but
environment is just it's so
it
huge.
matters. It
Yeah,
matters so much,
it
and like
does.
my dad, was raised by a single parent, and but my dad, I think he really instilled because of that, he was going to make sure that he was going to be, in my life. And,
Yeah,
I'm a daddy's girl, right? Like
yeah,
my dad had been at every game that I played. My parents, at least one of them would be at the honor roll assemblies. Like they made a way, right? And
yeah,
I think that support, again, when you're a kid, you maybe don't realize it. When you look back at it means so much to have that consistent support. And so for me, it wasn't just in the household, it was outside of the household.
yeah.
But then I also think, I had parents that, again, my parents are from Jackson, Mississippi, right? So their life was much different. And I think they had
Right.
to really build, and they purposely moved to where they moved to here in the DMV area where I'm based so I could have a better life. But it was always like,
Uh-huh.
if you want something, work for it, go get it. And I was always told, like you can be great and you will be great. And
Yeah,
I knew I had that support and it matters, like you said. So those positive environments and even all my after school programs. That's why I'm a big advocate for
yeah.
after school programs for youth. Again, I was always around kind of caring adults
Right.
who showed like success. Success was the only option. It was no failure that was going to
Yeah,
happen. It's going to be success. And so that was kind of my environment. Like somehow, some way, I'm going to have to do something with myself and something with my life because I wanted to be somebody. Like
that's right.
that was always what I was told. Like, how are you going to be somebody in this world? And that was kind of like always my moving motivation for me.
Yeah. So what was that one thing or that person that drove you towards journalism?
Oh yeah. For me, honestly, there's so many, I always tell people like, luckily my parents were news watchers, right? So when I finally get home from school, like, the news was always on. And it's kind of like how your environment, sometimes you don't think about it, but it
Yeah,
influences you, right? It's kind of like how theme songs like instantly.
yeah,
I know you might even watch the show, but you heard it, right? And it
yeah.
gets in your mind. So I think for me, I always give Oprah as the example because when she had Mississippi roots, like my family,
Right.
she kind of persevered through all the odds, right? And so
Yeah,
she touched down in Baltimore, and then for me, she had went on and started her own network again as a
right,
Black woman in this country, again, defying the odds when everyone said she wouldn't make it. So, I remember watching folks like her. Y'all remember when we used to all run home 4 p.m.
right.
Oprah Winfrey show. You had to be there,
Yeah,
watching, Robin Roberts. Honestly, when I would see these Black news anchors, right, on television, it meant something. It was like they look like me,
yeah,
I'd hear them talking so powerfully. And I remember asking my parents, like, how many people are these folks talking to? And like,
right.
for local news, like hundreds of thousands. And then for national, they're like millions. I'm like, there's millions
Millions.
of people watching that person. They have that much influence, so for me, it was just that broadcast realm. And even every day in the car, I remember my dad would turn on like, Donnie Simpson show and Tom Joyner in the morning. You guys
You
remember the
said
challenge.
Dottie Simpson, right?
You remember that, like, but you'd hear again these powerful Black narratives and
Yeah,
powerful Black voices, and I just saw like how people looked and valued their opinion and their
yeah,
thoughts. So for me, like, I could point to so many people, but to me, it was the power and influence that they had. And I love that ability to influence. And so I think
yeah,
for me, it's many of those early journalism pioneers, those Black voices that I heard that really inspired me to get into the field and really showcased to me, seeing is believing, and that I
yeah,
really be, what I see. And then also I'll shout out to Nas, because the I know I can, used to always play that at our Boys and Girls Club.
Right.
Thing. And so just wanting again to be somebody. So I think also like this music has such a big influence, on me as well. Cause when you hear those words, that positive affirmation, again, it just tells you that you truly can make it.
That's right.
There's people there that, have done it. And then so you
Hmm.
can kind of continue to follow that path, but of course make it your own. So just shout out to everybody who, again, I would just listen to just growing up, that planted those seeds in my head that
Yeah.
honestly still to this day have never left.
Wow. So, man, what was that journey like though, to actually like just kind of break in? Because I mean, you
Yeah.
already have you have these thoughts, these ideas, these visions for your life,
Right.
but you always know that there's some type of resistance, somebody who's always trying to block your path.
Always,
You know,
always. And to me, as you get older, you realize like when you have haters and stuff, it's because you're doing the right thing, right?
right?
You're younger, it's like, and I tell people all the time, like I've been told so many times, like now it got to a sense, where of course it impacted me when I was younger, because it
Yeah,
makes you feel like you're not worthy, right? You're not.
right,
And then what I had to realize, and so I tell this to young people, I turned the word no and I switched around and it turned into the word on. And I mean, God
right.
was me on to something else, and so I think for me, my journey into journalism was not your typical journey. Like for me, I grew up in the DMV area, and again, we had journalism greats from here, right? Like
Yeah,
pioneer greats. And I'm like, I want to stay here. I want to be the next great. So I go to journalism school at University of Maryland. And along the way, I do all the internships. I'm doing good in school, kind of doing everything right, like
right.
right, like that everybody's supposed to tell you. And then you get to that final semester and you're applying to jobs, and that's kind of when life gets real. And I'm sure
That's
I'm not
right.
talking to any seniors out there taking you back to your, especially in the journalism field. And that's when you start to get a lot of no's, or the couple of yeses you get are like in the middle of nowhere places. And so for
Yeah,
me, it's kind of like, all right, so I know I want to get to journalism. I know it's not going to be an easy field, but like I have two options. Either I can take these no's, or really three options. I can either take these no's and just say, maybe this wasn't the field. Maybe I'll
right.
just on to something else. Or I can go to one of these small name places and try to work my way up and see what happens. Or I can bet on myself.
That's right.
Essentially, I was like, I'm gonna bet on myself, because I was like, I'm already in the DC area. I'm in the most powerful city in the world. Why would I leave to work my way back here?
Yeah,
So that's kind of when that's honestly how I fell into the world of freelancing. So I was like, I would put myself out there. Luckily, I had started an internship in college that turned into like freelance work,
hmm,
unpaid freelance work when I first started. But again, it was just a chance for me to get my name out there and build
that's
my brand.
right.
I think I learned early in college that, and this was kind of before social media was like popping off, right? Like
Yeah,
this is when Facebook was kind of like king, and people wouldn't post, but like I learned early, like your name had to be known. Like journalism is such a networking industry. So I was
yeah.
going to everything. I was at every game I could cover. I was raising my hand and I was volunteering, and I had no car all the meanwhile, but
Yeah,
I found a way to get there. I call it my BMW. It was either bus, metro, or walk. I was going to
that's
find
right.
to get to that place, right? So my BMW, I was gonna find a way to get there, like or find a ride or something. And so for me, it was again raising my hand for those opportunities. But then I realized, I think like 6 or 3 months down the line, I was out of school and I was like, all right, I'm not making any money. And I have wonderful parents. So I have parents also like you got a degree, you need to get a job and get a
Right.
place. So it's like, all right, so back to reality. And that's when I was like, okay, I need something else that's going to help my resume stand out. And so that's when I decided to make the choice to go to grad school. And I was like, okay, if I go to grad school, I don't want to be in there forever, and I need a really
Right.
good program. And so luckily applied to Georgetown, had a great sports industry management program. I thought pairing that with my broadcast journalism degree would be a perfect way for me to showcase like I need to be in sports media.
Yeah.
So go to Georgetown, intern again, doing everything I need to do, made really, really great connections. And now I come out of school, right? And so now I have 2 degrees, which is great because you have a master's that already kind of puts you above. And then I had done all this great journalism internship work, and I had begun to build up my name in the area. So then now when I'm graduating, I have more people that know me, and I'm starting to get more opportunities, right? I'm putting myself out there. I'm putting my work out there. I'm
Yeah.
sharing it, wherever I can share it. And one opportunity turns into the next opportunity. And so I think for me, it's like, was one learning I think one way I broke into journalism was like I said, putting myself out there. You can't be
Yeah.
afraid. Like if you do something, it's great if you do it, but if nobody else knows you did it, who cares, right?
Right.
So pushing and promoting myself out there. I think two great connections.
Hmm.
I was getting myself at every conference, and I didn't really learn the value of conferences till like grad school-ish
Yeah.
era, and networking with folks. My rule is if you're ever in a room, at least one person needs to know you're in that room and know when you left that room.
Right.
Otherwise, you need to be in that room, right? So I was going,
Wow.
introducing myself, putting myself in there, making sure people knew who I was, what I
Yeah.
was doing, even if they weren't in the journalism world, because I'm like, I don't know who this person knows, but if they know me, you know, they might spread my name.
That's
So
right.
that's the next big thing. And then also I think when you do a job, do it well. Like I
Hmm.
don't, some people realize sometimes you don't just want names on your resume to have
Right.
names on your resume. If you didn't do a good job or someone can't vouch for you, can't have a reference from that place, what did you do
Ooh,
there? Right. So doing my
right.
job, I think the best of my ability. And that's really how my journalism career popped off. Honestly, like my name would be recommended to this person or someone would see me there. And now fast forward, it's been about 10 years since I left undergrad, which is scary to think about. And again, one opportunity, not just turned into journalism opportunities, but that turned into public speaking opportunities. That's how I began teaching. And it's like, because people kept seeing your work and your value. And then
Yeah.
companies kept, this person would hit me up or that person would hit me up and just give me a
Wow.
chance our opportunity. And also, I will be honest, I also wasn't afraid to like reach out in people's inboxes and say and push and promote myself. I'm like, hey, if you end up hiring, introduce myself. I'm looking for on-air opportunities. Please keep me posted in the loop and
Yeah.
not be afraid of the power of follow-up as well. So my
That's
career has
right.
again just been a testament to repetition and doing the work, networking and getting to know people. And then again, putting myself out there, betting on myself, and really
Yeah.
just believing in myself and knowing my capabilities and
Hmm.
value as I
Wow.
propel the industry.
And what you were when you were just talking about that, and you were just talking about like getting yourself out there and pushing yourself, it's like
Yeah.
I heard you actually talk about it on one of your videos where you
Yeah.
actually just talked about valuing yourself and knowing your worth.
Ooh, yes.
Uh
Yeah.
I was like, if you don't know your worth or your value, how can you sell yourself basically?
Yeah.
Especially in those networking opportunities.
Right.
Because people can
Right.
actually, I mean, they could feel like when somebody's a little bit timid or unsure of themselves, but
Yeah.
you got to have that confidence.
You do. You do. But
Yeah.
I think it has to be monitored in a way. So I also want to come off, I feel like you don't also want to come off too aggressive, right? Because going back to value, you want people to
Yeah.
know that you want something, but like you're just
Right.
not going to do anything for that, right? And so I think
Right.
it's balance. I'm going to go back to you for value. That's what I said. I used to do when I first was starting off, I knew I had to do work for free, right? Because again, I
Yeah.
needed to build I needed to build my reputation. People had to know who I am. I will
Yeah.
tell you, 10 years later, there are still people asking me to do some stuff for free. And it's like, have you seen my work? Have you seen, again, knowing your value? And that's not to say, of course, like I do career days and stuff like that. One of the best pieces of advice I got, though, is knowing how much your coworkers make.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you enough how important that is.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you'll think you know your value, right? You're doing good
Hmm.
work, doing good
Yeah.
things. You have a coworker who might be doing the same thing, but maybe it looks a little bit different than you. And
Right.
you might see what they're getting. And then
Hmm.
you're weighing it like, wait a minute, like, what's the difference? And so I think
Right.
that the most valuable things is being open and loud and at least finding, and this is why I say it's so important to not just have a mentor
Hmm.
in an organization, but to have an ally, right?
Yeah.
Or sponsorship in an organization, right? So
Right.
who's going to come to bat for you and come to value once you learn, and then knowing what the market is too. And I think
Uh-huh.
that's honestly when I learned the power of also saying no to things. Like when I first started, I thought you had to say yes to everything, right? Because you just
Uh-huh.
needed an opportunity, right?
Right.
So in high school football, like people were putting me in so many different places all over the DMV area, but I was just excited to be there.
Yeah.
And then I realized later on that like you don't need to say yes to everything. You have to say yes to the right things.
That's
What's
right.
in alignment with your visions and goals? What's in alignment with your purpose? What's going to help propel you to where you want to be? And if the answer is no, then maybe you don't need to be there if it's not answering any of your questions, right? And that
That's
it's
right.
okay. It's not going to be the end of the world if you
Yeah.
turn something. Sometimes life has a funny way of working out, working its way out. It might come back to you as well,
That's
right? And
right.
maybe it'll be a better opportunity the second time around. So I think those are like the biggest things. Like I said, when you're first starting out, you just want an opportunity, right? You're
That's right.
hungry, like you're trying to grow. But now, like I said, the power of no, and just realizing again, what my value and worth is so important, especially I'll be honest with you as a Black woman, because sometimes people will try to undervalue you or
Yeah.
think that you don't know. And that's kind of why for me, I love doing multiple things because I've had to get educated in multiple things. Like
That's right.
I am my own agent right now
That's right.
negotiate for myself. I had to learn that, right? Because I'm wearing that hat, but also I'm wearing the talent hat, right?
Yeah.
I'm wearing the business hat, right? So I'm doing all of these different things, but again, it's been so valuable for me to know where I, Kelsey Nicole Nelson, sit and stand and kind of what I can demand, for what
Yeah.
I bring, my time, talents, and treasures to any opportunity, right?
That's
And I'm
right.
thinking for any opportunity that's considering me.
That's right. And as you're talking about like knowing what your coworkers or your peers might be getting. Why the
Mm-hmm.
first thing that came to my mind
What
is
happened?
no, it just made me think about these guys who sign these contracts, right? Whether it's
Mhm.
football, baseball, basketball,
Yeah.
they're getting paid off of what their value. And some of these goes out there, they'll hold out until they
Mhm.
actually get what they deserve.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, I think about like, I mean, in my neck of the woods, the big thing was Lamar Jackson, right? When he was
Right.
holding out, right? Doing it with his mom, and everyone's like, oh, he's not going to get what he's worth or value. He should just take the money. And at the time, yeah, I know it's since passed because, geez, quarterbacks are getting so much money right now in the National
They are.
Football League. But at the time, he was the highest paid, and nobody thought he could do it, right?
Yeah.
Like, no way. And he held out, and he eventually got what he wanted. And I think that's what we're seeing now. And that's kind of why, again, if you have the right agent, they'll again know your worth and value if you have somebody working with you, and they're going to make sure that you get that, right? They're going to do
Right.
their diligence to get that because you've done the work, right? If
Right.
you do the work, the proof is in the pudding.
That's
So
right.
now it's up to you to do your part and give me what I know I deserve and what I value. I think sports is a great example of that. And luckily for sports too, because a lot of that knowledge is public,
Mm,
it makes the next quarterback's contract easy, right? That's why Jordan Love
right.
paid all that money because they were looking at all the other quarterbacks that got paid and like,
The,
look
the,
at what he just did. And now this is what he can demand and this is what
yeah.
he can value. So that's one great thing about sports, again, is that so much public knowledge,
Hmm.
right? That now it's easier. I think we would be like, okay, if he got that and I did this year, then I can get this and
Right.
more. So that's a fun thing.
Now, have you ever thought about, I mean, because you're in a sports city. I mean, and you just in sports seems to be like your life, when it comes to on the things that you cover, right? Like, have you ever
Yeah.
thought about becoming an agent or representing some of these guys?
I will tell you. So there was a while back when I was at University of Maryland, I was on the pre-law track, and the
Uh-huh.
agent crossed my mind. I will
Yeah.
say being a sports agent is a lot. I love athletes, I love players and the great work that they do because I love covering their stories.
Yeah.
They're a lot to manage. Like being an agent can be a lot. So I think for me, I like knowing what they do. Who
Right.
knows? Maybe in the future, maybe there will be like a K&N consulting
Yeah.
company, but
Yeah.
I think I will definitely have people who, again, that's their passion and value, because that's the other thing I've learned. Like, and also not selling yourself too thin. Like, I love knowing what they do, but I think right now I'm doing so many things that I love, but
Yeah.
I'm also know I'm like almost a reached capacity with what I've done. So I think right
Right.
now that might be an option in the future, but with what I have on my plate right now, it'd be way too much for me to manage and handle. But again, door is open if anybody needs some consulting. Consulting for any of those things.
That's
That's
right.
first in that area. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. Shout out to all the agents out there because I don't think people realize the work that they do to get
Yeah.
those big contracts.
I can only imagine. So what do you think your I guess your strengths are? Like, I guess when you think about
Yeah.
your superpower,
Yeah.
your gift,
What's my
would you,
superpowers? This is a great question. I think for me, it's a couple things. Like one, okay, so I'm called a connector. So easy way of saying
right?
this, being the influencer. I'm good at meeting people and then like knowing kind of where to place them if that makes sense, right? So
Right.
like, oh, this person, oh, I have an event coming up. They would be a great panelist, at this, or that
Yeah.
person. I need to match with this person because they were looking for, an educator or whatever. So I think I'm just really good at like meeting people and then kind of knowing where to place them. So that's why people are always telling me, like, how are you doing all these events and stuff? I just keep meeting people and they keep telling me about all these great things. And I think because I keep my relationship strong and because
Right.
again, I know how to just promote and push, like it's like you're always in minds. And so I think I'm really good at that, where just get connecting, I think is one. I think also just branding, right? Like, and
Yeah.
this is something I fell into, right? Like, I mean, I'm thankful that, my K&N brand has taken off, but when I first, when you first start, you really are just trying to put yourself out there, right? And
Uh-huh.
you don't even realize that you are your own brand, and
Right.
I've been blessed now to realize, and now people come to me for like brand and image consulting, but like, how do you brand yourself? How do you tell your story? And I think that's something that I've been really good at, knowing how to package that and knowing how to make it resonate with an audience. I think branding touches so many things. I think I'm the public speaking realm, I've been blessed with the gift of gab. And so that kind of, again, shout out to the family, shout out to everybody that talked to me coming up along the way. That helped me just kind of develop, that skill. And again, you don't know you're good at it until like literally people tell you. Because
Right.
I fell into that. Like it was like, oh, you're a good public speaker. And the next thing you know, this person's reaching out or that person's reaching out. And I get so many nice notes, after I speak. So that's been something that's been amazing. And then even just like promoting yourself, but in a way that's not too much, if that makes sense. I was like, oh, you're so
Right.
good at promoting yourself and like doing it in the right way. Like we always think you're doing something, but it's not annoying. So I think knowing that brand value is also really important.
Yeah.
And then I think just my biggest thing is I make people feel comfortable, like, and that's so important for me as a journalist. Like when I'm interviewing folks, you know, or like kind of help them put their guard down, right? I have a
Right.
connection point for them to be real with me. Because again, for me to get the best out of somebody, they have to be comfortable for them to share it, right? So I
That's
think
right.
that's one of the things I also take pride in is just like how can I connect with somebody, let them let their guards down. I mean, I've had interviews, you know, people have shared very intimate details, you know, about themselves or their families. That's not always hard. That's not always easy to do, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the first time they've ever shared those things out loud and out publicly. So how do you make that happen? And then I think four, probably I just say like, I think I'm just good at finding opportunities, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's how I'm always in the community just because I'm always searching. Like I just kind of never give up. So like I'm always looking for things and kind of things align. So I think I've been very blessed, to, like just know how to find things and then kind of fit those things kind of around the schedule. So I guess I
Right.
will have many superpowers. So if Marvel ever wants to reach out to me, I am
Yes,
available.
girl.
I will be that Black woman superhero. Should they need it.
Look,
Just
and
saying.
they are forever making movies too. So
They are. So I'm like, Marvel, look, people have asked me about acting. It's so funny. I'm always like, I'm not an actor, I'm a broadcaster. Maybe
yeah,
it's time.
yeah.
Maybe it's time to make that pivot.
You can be the superhero journalist.
There we go. Look,
Right.
what is it? Superman. He was working in the
That's
newsroom,
right.
right?
Yep.
Clark Kent
Clark
during the
Kent.
day. So add that Black woman in that newsroom.
That's right.
I will take off with him, save the world.
Ah, yeah, your microphone could be your secret weapon. You know what
There we go.
I'm
You
saying?
never know what it's going to turn into.
That's
Why
right.
talk to you?
Stern.
They might need me for this election. They might need that superhero.
Right.
Come out. Make sure people act right and behave.
That's,
You never know.
that is fun.
Look, we were already, so people already know, you know who to call, me and Derek. World's best kept superhero secret.
For real, right? Ah, zodiac signs connect.
There we
Boom.
go. See
Like the
that
one that.
Cancer energy. You never know what you're going to get from a Cancer.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
Too
Oh.
funny.
So when you, I guess, when you're when you're pursuing something, and I
Yeah.
know there's those times when we have to put the blinders on. We have to put those on. So how do you like get to a place where you just start transforming the way you think and operate to become that person you need to be?
You know, this is a good question. You know, people I kind of get questions a lot about like how I prepare.
Uh-huh.
And I do like I always kind of close myself off like before a
Yeah.
game or like when I just watching USA basketball. I kind of need that like me time, right? That alone time. And that's just
Right.
for me to like reconnect with myself, reconnect with my feelings, and just kind of to your point, turn into
Mm.
what I need to be. So like I teach an 8 a.m. class, right? So usually kind of when I'm like getting myself ready for that class, it's about my 30-minute Uber ride to downtown DC from where I live in DC.
Yeah.
That's my time to just kind of prepare and get myself in that mindset where I can be the best for my students, right?
Right.
Turn into full professor mode and I'm on, right? And I'm on it. And again, I have to, especially for an 8 a.m. class,
Yeah.
you better be on it.
Right.
And I probably right. Because you're the first person like usually that those students see, beyond their roommates or, a couple
Right.
people they see going to class. And so whatever that me time is, I think that's the time I use like for me to turn it even before I go on stage for something. Like again, I just have to find that moment where I just get in thought and self like in touch with me.
Mhm.
And I just kind of that's when I do like my own motivation, like, how can I be the best that I need to be? And that's kind of when I go
Right.
through things or scenarios or situations. You just remind yourself of who you are. I think that's what it is, like calming your nerves. I'm a very anxious person because again, I'm
Yeah.
a perfectionist like most people, right? So how do you
Hmm.
calm your nerves to be the best? Because I think nerves can be good, but also you don't want them to dictate your thoughts and your feelings and emotions, right? So
Right.
I get them to a place to just like calm down and I know I can put my best self forward. So whatever that me time is before anything, it's very valuable and crucial. Like whenever I'm going out to like do an event again, I have to block off however allotment of time that is
Yeah.
just for me to connect with me. So I always said like I'm an extrovert, very extroverted, but I have my introverted moments, and my
Right.
introvert moments are when I can really prepare and be my best self, right,
Yeah.
for me. Because I can't be all, I can't be all on all 100% of the time. You kind
Right.
of have time where you like cool down, you reset, you recharge, you rejuvenate, and then you can be kind of the better self for you. So a lot of times
Right.
it is rides, I'm riding to wherever I'm going. Because that's the time when no one can really bother me. Even though, you have those Uber drivers sometimes. I'm like, yeah, and I'm so nice, right? And they'll keep talking to you. And it's like, yes, I'm preparing, for a quick speech stuff. It's so great to talk to you, right? And again, just kind of resetting, rejuvenating, and getting
Yeah.
back to, whatever mode or mood I need to be in for whatever I'm doing.
Right. I know there's been times when, I mean, because I'm kind of like the same way, where you start getting anxious about things, and
Yeah,
especially like when you have stuff that's coming up, and
great.
you're like, especially like a speaking type of engagement, or you're going to be around some other people, and it's like, dude, it's not about me. It's not about me, DOL. It's not about me. What can I do to add value to these people? So it's
Right.
like you get into this place, and shout out to Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
Because I never I never thought about
Yeah.
like meditation in the
Mm,
form that I learned from him,
nice.
where it's like, all right, this is what's going on. This is a place where I'm currently at, but this
Yeah.
is whoops, but this is where I need to be. And
Mm,
so managing these thoughts, and just getting to a place where, okay, this is a place where I'm at, um focusing on what I want,
mm,
what I'm capable of,
yeah.
and then envisioning that, and envisioning like what that looks like.
Right.
But also taking the breaths, right? Like the deep breaths through the
Yeah.
nostrils.
You have to. And
You
like, and
have to.
everybody's might look different. Like for me, like I love music, right? So
Uh-huh.
music kind of puts me like, in a mood, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a song for everything, right? So
Right.
sometimes it's like popping my AirPods in and letting that music kind of calm me. Because again, when you get anxious, your body starts to move, like your blood starts flowing
Right.
fast, your heart starts beating fast. And it's like, you got this. And,
Right.
I always was like, I never really understood yoga until recently. And
Yeah.
I found this video online and it was like trauma informed yoga. And I was like, trauma informed yoga.
Yeah.
And I was doing the video and it's like, just like let your emotions free and all that stuff. And like in my mind, I'm like, okay, I don't have any emotions on my mind right now, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
do this, whatever. And next thing I know, after my workout, I'm like a little emotional. I'm like, maybe I did have some thoughts
Yeah.
and feelings, right? That were inside. And so, like I said, it's different for everybody. And again, this
Hmm.
was to me, but whatever it is to like get yourself in that setting and that feeling. And like you said, I'm always thinking about how can I be the best for whoever I'm doing it for, but also not just for them. I want to be the best version of me. Because at the end of the day, when I
Right.
finish something, I want to be proud of what I did, right?
That's right.
I want to take onus in that. So how do I get to a spot where I can make kind of again both of us happy? Again, every relationship for me is mutually beneficial. So how can I be mutually beneficial to whoever I'm talking to? And how can I be mutually beneficial for me? And so that alone time for me, it matters so much. That's probably the most important of my day every single day.
Yeah.
And that's when you kind of have to reconnect with yourself because life is a lot. There's so much
Right.
that happens, right? But when can you take the time out and again just kind of let the world be? And
Hmm.
it's just you and your
Right.
thoughts, your feelings, you and your emotions, and
Right.
you acting. So I'm so thankful for that time. And again, that's something that's so valuable to me and something I have to do before every kind of like bigger thing and even smaller thing, right? Even something like class.
Right.
Again, just so I can be the best version of me for myself. Cause I never want somebody to say Kelsey was off today or, something like that.
Right.
I want to always be on. So for me to be on, it
Yeah.
means connecting and making sure I know myself best in order to present myself in the best way that I can.
That's right. And I just think about me. You just think about, like, I mean, you mentioned faith earlier, and you
Yeah.
and you talk about it. You just think about like how often did Jesus just kind of go away by himself
Mm,
to pray and to be by himself, to recharge, to
yeah.
think, to whatever,
Yep.
express gratitude.
Right.
It was
Yep.
often, and he did it for a reason,
Mhm.
because you need that
And
alone time.
you do, you
Yeah.
do. And I don't, and I mean, I'm not gonna talk for everybody, but I think even the biggest extrovert has probably some type of alone time that they have to do.
Right.
And honestly, think about it. Like that's why, like when you sleep, you get in your thoughts and emotions, and your body has to turn off. Like no one can be on like the entire time. But like,
Right.
if you be your best self is knowing yourself. And that's not to say you can't know yourself and talking with other people, but to really
Hmm.
know yourself, I think is again when you have the time with just you and yourself. And if you haven't had a chance to do this yet, I highly encourage you. And you're going to learn and see things about yourself that you probably never even knew.
That's
And so
right.
for me, I know how to calm myself down now, right? And that's
Yeah.
important Because if I have bad nerves, I might can't present myself in the best way because my body is doing all these things and my thoughts are turned off, and I'm not thinking the way that I need to think. So I need to
Right.
be able to know how to control myself. And that's like one of the best things I ever learned is getting in touch with your thoughts and emotions. And again, it looks different for every single person with how they get there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess when you're going through that process and you knowing that, okay, just like you mentioned before, like just kind of like being in this anxious place, sometimes we have so much going on where we can't even recognize it at times. But how do you get your place to I guess, on a, I guess, to get to a place where you consciously are aware of what you're actually doing or what you're actually projecting?
Yeah. I think for me, so I am a natural competitor, right? So
Right.
like natural athlete. And so
Right.
for me, everything's a competition, which means like, how can I be my best self? And how can I be better than the last time, I got on? So for me, I like my mind again just goes kind of into that like competitor mode, like, win and like, what do I need to do to win?
Right.
Um, and I think again, this is me. It might be different for every other person, but I think that's kind of what has helped propel me. Like, I'll look out into an audience before I speak. And I love the kind of the bigger the audience, kind of the more motivated, right, I get because I'm like, wow,
Right.
I have an opportunity to reach and connect with all these people. And then also I
Yeah.
think I'm one of those people that always thinks like there's gonna be someone in here that you touch. Like I have
Hmm.
never left a speaking engagement and someone not come up to me and kind of share something that resonated with them in
Right.
person. And then sometimes I get those emails after, right? Or they'll come out to my
Right.
website. And those are the things that motivate me because I'm like, there's someone out there that needs to hear this. There's someone out there that I'm gonna reach. There's someone out there that's gonna be inspired, right, by me or what I have to say. And that's
That's
one of the
it.
best feelings in the world. Because then it
Yeah.
goes back to purpose. And again, remember, I told you I'm driven by legacy and influence. And so my purpose is like, how can I touch somebody? And I think that's kind of what I'm always thinking too. Like somebody in there again is gonna resonate and benefit. And again, because I'm a competitor too, I know this opportunity is gonna help propel me to my next one. So I'm like, if I
Yeah.
crush this one, that means bigger and better for the next one. And so that's kind of how my mindset works.
Yeah.
Again, everybody's different, but to me, every time I step on stage, every time I'm in front of a camera, it's an audition. It's
It
an
is, huh?
audition. I might get that call back. I might not get that call back, right? So when you feel like when you're in that mode, again, as a natural competitor, it's like, I
Yeah.
want that call back. I want to be invited back. And so that for me, I think is kind of what pushes and propels me when I look at everything like that. And I think
Yeah.
especially the freelance life teaches you that. It's an audition. This is not guaranteed.
Right.
How do you make sure that you get invited back and hopefully, get that contract? And so that's kind
Right.
of the thing. I think that has motivated and pushed me to kind of be the best at like whatever that opportunity is.
Yeah. And I know you just talked about competition, and it's so competitive, just like you said in the beginning. Like, what do you actually do to make yourself stand out from the
Yeah.
competitors?
Ooh, this is a great one, and this is what I'm honestly always thinking about because, and I tell this to people all the time, like there's so many people doing what you do. So
Yeah.
and I think that's what goes back to like branding. So like for me, social media has been incredible, like for most people, but like there's
Yeah.
so many people, that have seen my work or something through social media. And so like a couple things, like one, I've learned the value of my name. I go by my full name, right?
Right.
So there's many Kelsey Nelsons, there's not as many Kelsey Nicole Nelsons, even though earlier this year I got mistaken for Meg Thee Stallion's ex-best friend, but she's just Kelsey Nicole. I am Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
That's right.
But it was an important lesson because actually now my name is trademarked, right? So this is
Right.
mine. I own this. This is my brand. And that's important because like my biggest thing, like I remember when I was younger, I used to Google myself and I would get so frustrated when I was not on the first page.
Yeah.
There's Kelsey Nelson's. And then I realized that like you have to do certain things to make sure you come up at the top. And so for
Right.
me, that looks like is, making sure I'm always like having appearances and the right appearances, right? So
Right.
a radio show or coming on a podcast or talk show. I'm always like, how can that add value? Right. What is that going to do to help my name and brand? So I think for me, it's like, okay, that's going to show me, like for this instance, this podcast is really digging into who I am. So that's going to show me in a light for people to like really get to know me and be comfortable with me.
Yeah.
Do a sports radio show that shows my knowledge of sports, right? And that's going to make
Right.
people want to kind of get me for that. So I think every opportunity in alignment, but I think it's making sure that you go on the right things, but you always need to be doing something. There is
Right.
not a week that I don't have some type of appearance or podcast or engagement.
Yeah.
And I think also just with branding, there's not a week that I'm not out at something, right? Like, so this week is a busy week for me. Like I'm going to the White House for an event. I have the city open in DC. I got invited to some special events for that. Like, so I always just kind of have to be out there pushing and promoting myself, which
Right.
I think is also huge. And that's kind of, again, going back to branding, that's part of my brand. People expect to see me at different things when they go on social media. Like
That's right.
I'm not like, Kelsey, hey, everything good? You
Where you
okay?
at?
Like, haven't seen you. So it's
I know
like,
this
no,
girl ain't on vacation.
there you go. Right. Sometimes if you see me off, like I need a little break too,
Yeah.
but that's part of the brand. People
Right.
like to see that grind. And so I think for me, what has separated me is my work ethic. I always tell people, you will not outwork me. I have been an underdog my entire life. I am always hungry to win.
Yeah.
Right. So that means my work ethic is like, again, I'm always working. I think that's another thing that separates me. So like I have 2 internship programs I'm running. I'm a professor. I'm doing broadcasting. I work for the nonprofit world doing communications and comms. So I
Right.
think when people know you're always working, it's also comforting because again, nobody's going to say no to somebody who again has a good work ethic and
Right.
actually enjoys work. And then if they know you can handle multiple things, which is not easy, that's also comfort in that. So I think also just being consistent in the work I do
Right.
also kind of help propel me. And then I think just the third thing, again, having a strong network, having a
Yeah.
strong having a strong network. You got to have the right people in your corner.
You
Who is
do.
going to help push your work? Who is going to say your name in rooms that you're not in? And so I think just helping to separate me, I think I've been able to have the right mentors and right supporters that have helped, push and propel the Canon brand and the Canon
Right.
name into places that like I've never even thought about. And I'm so thankful and so grateful for that. So I like to think that's a combination of those 3 things that have kind of helped to separate me from the pack. And then I think just being an authority on stuff. Like I tell
Right.
people, like, so I am a DMV sports authority. Like, so when people do DMDC sports, like a lot of times they come to me for things, right? Because I have branded myself on knowing all things DC sports, but it's helped propel me too because DC is the nation's capital. Also, it's helped propel me on a national scene, right? Where, oh, she doesn't only know like DC sports,
Yeah.
she can talk national sports. And then, like, so for certain sports like NBA, WNBA, NFL, again, I'm an authority on those things. So shows
Yeah.
will call me to talk about those things. But I think you have to be, that's why I said it's not just doing something, but it's doing it well. And so I
Right.
think I have branded myself for now 10 years in the DC sports market. I have built a thing where people know they can trust me. My reputation is like Kelsey knows her stuff.
That's
Um,
right.
again, she's an authority on this stuff. So when you get her, you're going to get the best knowledge and analysis, and you're going to get the real stuff. So I think that's the biggest thing too. Like, what can you really brand and promote yourself on
Yeah.
that you are uniquely in? And especially because I'm in this place where unfortunately there's not as many women that look like me in this industry. What we're trying to push, it's like she's a Black woman in sports authority in DC that used to be Chocolate City. So again, it kind of I think helps push and propel you in a way. It's like, dang, who is this? Who is this
Yeah.
woman that
Who's the
knows
girl?
all this stuff?
Right.
Yeah. And so it gives you like your unique own lane. And of course, one of the things I'm working on now is helping to grow that lane because I should not be, right?
Right.
A few, to be doing that. But I also know with that privilege I get is a power I have to influence. And that's another reason why I have to do really well when I'm on stuff, because I want to keep the door open for other people that look like me to come through. And so I know I have
Right.
it, it's going to hopefully open that door for more people to be like, oh, dang, we need to start looking at more diverse candidates, to be on
Right.
or that. So I always had that pressure as well to do good, not just for me, but again, for the community, because we know we have so much more work to do to just increase diversity and representation in the media.
Yeah. And I know, I mean, that's just part of like creating a legacy for those
Yeah.
people behind. And I just think about just your work with was it the National After School Association? And then reading and comprehension, literacy. All of
Yes.
that stuff is so huge, and you're part of that. I was like,
It's so true. Like,
yeah,
I remember this is when Pizza Hut was big, but I never forget. You used to have like reading competitions, and when you like did good, you get the free Pam pizza from Pizza Hut, which I still love to this day. I actually miss going to Pizza Hut, but it's like reading, it's so valuable because people don't realize like reading can be as small as reading a text on your phone and can
mhm,
be as small as reading instructions when you go to IKEA and you're trying to build whatever you're trying to build, or it can
right,
be as big as reading a book, right? But knowing how to read is so important because again, that's how you automatically can understand things better, right? That comprehension that you talked about, that reading comprehension. And I realized, especially when you get to school, especially when you get to college, like the reading levels are so different and so vast. And a lot of time it's based on zip code. And that's an
yeah,
issue. Again,
that's right,
reading quality right that we have to a quality education that we have in this country, which is an amazing privilege, but it's not a privilege when not everybody is getting that. And so I realized like I was a super fast reader growing up. You can't tell I talk fast because my mind moves very fast. But then I realized, not everybody was like that. So what could I do again to help my classmates and peers get on that reading level? So I was like in a combination class. So like, I think it was like, so I was like one of the younger folks with the older folks, which was great because also, then it's like, oh shoot, like I know, like I gotta be good, like I'm with the big kids. But then it's also like, well, how can I help others like me, get into these classes? And I think that's kind of when I learned the value of again just reaching back and
yeah,
helping pull others up along the way. But like, such a big proponent again of basic reading, because so many, even adults, right, don't have the basic reading skills. And without basic
Right.
reading skills, it's going to be hard to achieve anything
It
in
is.
life, because everything kind of starts at that basis of knowing how to read and then how to write. And whatever language that you speak, you have to know how to do this. In any job, you're gonna have to know how to read and write, like at a basic level.
That's
So it's like
right.
going back to that basic note. How can we make sure that reading comprehension is not just an opportunity, but a privilege to all?
And that is so, I mean, that is so huge. I mean, you just think about when it comes time for you to apply for a job and fill out the application. I mean, some of the basic
And
things people actually
yeah,
struggle with, right? So
it's
reading
true.
is fundamental.
And everything they're going to give you to read, like reading a contract, like a lot of stuff. Like if you think about it,
Right.
look, there's a lot of time they're paid to read stuff and then comprehend it in a way that folks can take in, right? Like
Right.
that's something, but it's like just basic things again that people should be able to do. And again, if you go, I challenge you to go in certain schools and like where our kids aren't reading on basic grade level, and then the same
Uh,
people are complaining, that like these kids aren't doing what they need to be doing. Well, we need to invest into making sure they have the basic necessities again to a quality education, and they're able to actually read on grade level at
right.
a minimum, because we don't want to just graduate them. We want to graduate them successfully so they can go on and be whatever they want to be. Without reading comprehension, again, it's going to be very hard to do anything in this world that you want to do, because that's a basis kind of humanity, is
It
knowing
is
how to read, right? And that's everywhere you go, not just here in the US, but everywhere you go.
everywhere. Everywhere. Oh my goodness. So what do you think somebody I mean when you just think back or just kind of look back over just your life, your time, what are
Yeah.
some of the I guess one of the most challenging things that you actually had to overcome? And then how did it help you with your faith just in
Oh, yeah.
yourself?
I will give this example. So I am born and raised in the DMV area. And of course, like your dream is to work for like a hometown team, right? Because it's
You're right.
like I grew up watching them,
Yeah.
I want to be working for them. And so, as life would have it, I did end up working for, they were the Washington football team at the time. But of course, one of the biggest NFL brands and a team I grew up watching, right? So that was incredible. But prior to that, not everybody knows there was a basketball team in the area that had kind of courted me and invited me out and like spoke to me
Uh
and I thought things were going well. I'll never forget, like, so essentially I thought I had the job. And this is when I also learned the value of actually getting things in writing and not just verbal talking. But I'll never forget, I found it on social media and they didn't tell me that I didn't get the job. And I
wow.
was prepared for it. I was so excited. I couldn't wait to share the news. And it broke me. I mean, I'll never forget. I was outside. And I'm not like, if people that know, like, I'm not a big emotional person. Like, if you
Yeah.
ever see me cry, I'm probably watching a movie. Like, certain movies make me emotional for some reason. But like, I just started like bawling out crying. I started bawling out crying because I was like, it's nothing worse than feeling like your home team doesn't
Right.
want you, because there's no place like home. And so things hit differently. Like, because, again, I brand myself because I'm DMV Sports Authority. I brand myself on home. I'll just never forget. Like, I just thought I was the biggest failure in the world. I'm like, dang, I lost out on this amazing opportunity. I thought it was going to be life changing for me. Like, man, I was preparing for my next steps because
Yeah.
I thought I had it in the bag.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, like, after that moment, I went home again because everybody has pouty moments, so I was just
Yeah.
pouty, pouty, pouty. And then I realized, what was that going to do? They didn't care if I was crying. They didn't even
Yeah.
care to call me and tell me I didn't get the opportunity or even email me. So they could care less. So me, just pouting and being mad at the world and being mad at myself wasn't doing anything. So I think if anything, I turned that energy into a positive. And that's kind of when I went back to like what I knew. And that was again how to get myself out there. So that's when I went
Right.
back to the job portal and started applying and applying
Mm.
and applying and applying and putting myself out there. And I give that to say, like, I think a lot of times, like, people always tell us to have a dream, but no one tells you what to do after that dream. So that was a dream job for me. And that's where I
Right.
was preparing for the next step. When I didn't get the dream job at the time, I kind of first thought like it was over for me. I'm like, dang, I got rejected by the hometown team. Like, I'm not even good enough to stay at home. But what I realized is in the essence, again, that job wasn't meant for me. It
Right.
wasn't meant for me. And who knew? Like I said, later did I know I would go on to work for the hometown football team, which I think was a bigger brand. And again, you don't know how life is going to work itself out. But I also learned like self-doubt and pity doesn't do anything for you. Again, I think you need your moments. Like it's
Right.
natural to have emotion when you don't get something. I still get irritated sometimes when I don't get stuff right now. But at the same time, turn that energy into a positive. And I just started working hard. Like I remember I was up all night, I was just applying, applying, applying. I started refining my resume. Like I was looking over my website. Like I was doing anything I could do to make sure I put out a better brand, right? In
Yeah.
perspective. I think that's kind of what you learn too, is that you're never too good to refine yourself.
That's
You're never
right.
too good to refine your skills. And so it kind of forced me to, again, take a look. And again, it wasn't that I was bad, but it obviously meant that I just kind of had to take a look back at myself and just find a way that I could, again, find that next opportunity. And so I
Right.
actually share that example because I think failure can be looked at multiple ways. Like I've known people, who have kind of had a failed opportunity in a career and they've kind of given up. And
Right.
again, he's different. That could have been the end of my journalism career. We might not be talking right now because I would have been like, dang, I'm just done. Like, let me try something else. But again, I turned that into, I think, something, and luckily that all those applications that I started filling out,
Yeah.
one of those turned out really good. And
That's right.
I got an opportunity. But it wouldn't have happened again if I had just given up in that moment. So I think probably I give that example again because I think like your worst defeat can sometimes be your biggest blessing.
Right.
And again, you won't see it at that time usually, and you're gonna have thoughts and emotions. And now, this is the same team, and it's a team I cover now and I comment on now, and people invite me on shows to talk about now.
Yeah.
An opportunity, but I'm still having an opportunity with that team. And so that's why too, you
Right.
never know how things are going to kind of come full circle, back to themselves. And that's kind of why I still to this day, like I said, I keep a folder of all the no's I've ever gotten. It's a reminder of how far I've come. And it's a
Wow.
reminder of God's path for me and
That's
what wasn't
right.
for me, and so the ones that weren't meant for me. So yeah, I think that was a defining moment because I've never been that emotional, especially in public, like
Uh,
to just burst out crying because I was hurt. And like I said, I come from a strong Black woman lineage. So like I wasn't like taught to like, just do that. But I
yeah.
had so many thoughts in that moment because I thought it was mine. Like that was
Yeah.
mine. Like they had given me a tour. Like I was ready. I was prepared. And then also don't count your blessings before they come. Right. It taught me that too. Because
Mm.
I had verbally gotten something, but I hadn't got that email back. And I kept emailing, trying to figure out what was happening. But I was like, oh, okay, maybe they're just busy. And,
Right.
it turned out to be like, no, they just didn't want me that time to do that. So, and that's the biggest thing. Like, what do you do to prepare for the next step of the dream? And I
Hmm.
think that's something that's so important to do. Know that your dream can have multiple facets, right? Like my
Right.
dreams, plural, I have multiple that I'm trying to reach, and achieve. And so one determined, is not going to be the end of all of those dreams. It's just going to
That's
be a
right.
little pivot and setback, but
Hmm.
doesn't mean I can't come back, right? For whatever God has meant for me to do. Again, while I live this life that He has fortunately graced me to live.
That is so, that is, I mean, that's absolutely powerful and true. I mean, you just think about like how many times or, you know, like you said, that verbal confirmation, but it's not written, right? And so
It
that's what we
wasn't
just,
written.
right.
Lesson learned.
So that's what we base it off of. And we're like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I got this. And so it almost made me think about like this, how sometimes we can assume
Mm,
um that we have something or may possibly assume that I'm just gonna get this based off of who I am and my
right.
reputation and who I
Right.
know. Meanwhile, God is like, my child, man, you have not even you
Yes.
haven't put in the right amount of time. You haven't even prepared. And if I give you
Yep.
this job now, you might just fumble it. You might stumble. There's no telling
Right.
what might happen.
Right.
But
Right.
the right opportunity, and now look at you.
It will come,
Yeah,
right? And that's why I
it will
tell
come.
people, like, man, if I gave up after every no I have gotten, I for sure, wouldn't be here. Because I tell people, like, when I was working for the Washington football team, when I first talked with them, it was like a no, like they
Yeah,
didn't want me. And lo and behold, COVID happened, and I get an email.
yeah,
And next thing you know, I'm working for the team, and I had started with 2 shows, and they actually ended up giving me a whole another TV show, right? So this was a
yeah.
team at first that, again, it wasn't the right time. It was
Right,
God's time. And so it's like you just never know how things, are going to be and going to grow. Like journalism professor, again, that was not in the cards, that was not in the plate. But I think that's the other thing too, is just knowing people are always watching
right.
what you do. And so going back to like, how do I separate myself? I think that's why it's so important too, to whatever you put out there, it just needs to be good. And
Right.
that's why also how you treat people matters too, because what people put out there about you, it
Yeah.
needs to be good because somebody's always watching and they're
Yeah.
looking, and you never know again when God's grace is going to go in line with your plans,
Right.
match and mesh each other, and you need to be prepared and ready for that. So that's the other big thing too, is just like, and just be good and do good. But like I said, like you never know
Yeah.
who's looking, who's watching, and where that opportunity might be.
That's
And it might
right.
not be an opportunity that you plan for. But again, you have to trust him. You have to
You
trust
do.
him. You never know where that might lead you.
Yeah, it's just another opportunity for growth. I mean, just in the area
Ever.
that you might that you might not even known. But here you are. I mean,
Yeah.
wow.
I'm thankful.
You know?
Because an entrepreneur was never in the cards. When I
Yeah.
grew up, it was like you learn to like work for somebody, do good, and make money. but again, life had its plans. And, I've learned too, like I learned early on, you don't need to wait for a seat at the table because you can build your own. God has
There's your
equipped
own.
supplies to build your own. And then the great thing about building a table is that you can welcome other people to your table. And that's
That's
kind of
it.
why my give back part has come in. That's why I have 2 internship programs I'm running now, because I realize, again, God has put me on this earth, not just to bless myself, but to bless other people. And so I think that's what the beauty, again, of being able to have your own tools and supplies and being able to bring others up along with you.
Yeah.
And as people have at my table, eventually I'm going to excuse them because I want them to go build their own tables as well. Right. And
That
I
is,
want to have a whole cafeteria of tables of opportunities for folks. And so I think that's what's a beautiful thing about life, is that you can touch so many different people and you never know how it's going to come back to you. And again, not that you're expecting blessings back, but like I love when I have a former student or something like reach back
yeah,
out to me and I see what they're doing and it's just a blessing. And then they told me what they're doing to help other people. And
that's
it's a
awesome.
beautiful, beautiful pipeline, right? Of
That's
just
awesome.
giving back in those dreams.
Yep. I never forget when I end up having to give like a little presentation to this men's group at church, and
Yeah.
I actually titled it the table I have prepared for you. Talking
Mm.
about, and it's
That's
kind
so
of, and
beautiful.
so it kind of goes off of Jeremiah 29, when God talks about the plans that I have for you, the plans to
Mhm.
prosper and not to harm you, right? And so
Yeah.
if you actually like just think about that, you've already you're in a win-win situation. You're gonna have to do some work. It's gonna take some time. You have
Yeah.
to grow. You're gonna have to encounter some heartaches, but at the same time, know that God is with you. No matter what, know that God is with you, and
That
He gonna
part.
carry you through. That
It's
your
true.
main thing is just not to give up. Not to
That
give
part.
up.
And that sounds so easy to say, but
I
it's like,
know.
what do you do? And like, and none of us
Right.
would be here if we gave up during our weakest moments. But it's knowing God has you. And again, knowing
Right.
that that's part of the journey. Like,
Mm.
life is full of twists and turns, but
Yeah.
it's like eventually you're going to get to the destination. But, there's beauty in adversity, there's beauty in chaos. And that's what we
Yeah.
all have to remember. And so once you get through that, it's beautiful. But again,
Yeah.
know that that's why it storms every now and then, right? This is life. You're going to have those storms. It's how you come through it. And I think that's what will push and propel you to be better,
Yeah.
is you have gone through that adversity and those trials and tribulations of life that test everybody.
That's
It teaches
right.
you a lot about you. And then once you know
Uh-huh.
your resiliency and your tenacity, there's nothing that you can't do.
That's right. So
Just saying.
you said just so when you come across those people who, that you might have been speaking to, maybe students in your class, people that you're mentoring,
Yeah.
and a lot of these people, I mean, they have something that they're trying to overcome, something that they're battling. What are some
Right.
of the common things or common problems that you might see in them that you actually help them overcome?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like a lot of people don't think realize like how to get in touch with themselves. Like I always
Yeah.
get, how are you so confident telling your story? And how did you
Yeah.
get to who you were? And for me, it's like I did have to get comfortable and I did have to know how to do my elevator pitch. But knowing that 30 seconds is not the full story of me gives
Right.
you a synopsis, but it's not the full. And knowing that your story is going to evolve and it
Yeah.
is going to change and you're going to change. And so that's why I tell people, like, I really sit them down and I'm like, tell me, like, so the first assignment I give my students is like for them to tell me about themselves. And
Right.
it always varies, right? With what people share. Like some will share more about their hometowns, some will share more about their parents, and some will share, more about them, sometimes something they've overcome.
Yeah.
And what they share in that first part, I can tell kind of how open they are or how non-open they are, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've seen things that like, geez, I'm like, this person has already come through a lot of adversity and they felt comfortable sharing this with me. They don't even know me yet.
Yeah.
Right. And other times, like, okay, this person's a little bit more reserved and kind of want to give a more general picture, general view. So I mean, that's something like a lot of people want to get. Is like, how do I get comfortable just not only knowing yourself first, but then once you know yourself, how do you get comfortable telling and sharing that to other people? Because a lot of people have been through pain, let's be honest, and hurt
Right.
from some type of person in their life, and it's backstabbed them.
Yeah.
Biggest thing, like, how do you get comfortable being open and being vulnerable? Believe me, being vulnerable was the hardest thing for me to do. Because again, I thought you always had to portray like a perfect picture. I
Right.
thought that was the only way, but once you learn that, it's a powerful tool. I think the other thing is perseverance and how to keep going, what we just talked about. People
Yeah.
want to know, like, how do you keep going, like after, after this, or after that? And I think the biggest thing, again, and that's a journey too, like knowing how to persevere, because again, everybody goes through something different. For
Yeah.
me, I feel like I always have had goals, and those goals drive me like every single day.
Yeah.
I have not reached them yet. I have not reached them yet. So every single day, I'm like, what can I do to better reach that goal? Again, everybody's motivation is going to be different, but I'm very goal driven.
Yeah.
Also, luckily, again, I saw my parents in my life and I want to make them proud. Like that drives me. So like,
Yeah.
those things that are always, in my mind. And then I think success is probably the last thing I get a lot about. Like, but success looks so different for every other person.
Right.
in people's minds, like your life is perfect and like everything is successful, and because they don't see everything, right? And so they're like, well, how do I get to this? Or how do I get to that? And that's kind of what I think biggest thing people need, like how to plan a roadmap and plan. Again, I always like to prepare people for what to do after the dream.
Yeah.
To do after the dream, because everybody tells you to dream, but my biggest thing is how do we make that dream a reality and what happens after it. Like when you're a kid, everyone says, what do you want to be? And usually, I want to be a teacher, I want to be an astronaut. Nobody asks you, well, what about after you become a teacher? That's assuming that you be that your whole life, right?
That's right.
And then people also assume that you're going to have one answer. Why do you have to have one answer? Why
Yeah.
can't I have some commas between those jobs and
That's
an
right.
right between those jobs? So that's what I think I kind of tell people, like how to kind of push and expand their mind for what does success look like. Success could be success in your family, success in your relationships, success in your careers, success in your community. I mean, there's so many different things, again, for what we all think of
Mm-hmm.
as success. So I think, again, once you kind of, it all ties into each other. Once you know yourself, I think it's easier to find success. I think it's a lot
Right.
harder to find success when you don't know yourself. I mean, you're not in line with yourself, because it goes back to our conversation earlier, knowing your value. And a lot of times success is tied to your value. If you want to make a lot of money, you got to know your value, because you got to know what job you should say yes to and what men you might need to counter. And be
Right.
like, I'm gonna need a little bit more if you want me to come to your company, right? I'm gonna need a little bit more if you want to, work for you on your consulting firm or whatever. So I think a lot of it is tied together. But I think the biggest thing is sometimes people just need somebody to help plan it out. That's really what it is. Somebody to
Yeah.
sit down, listen to them, and help them to like just kind of plan it out. Because a lot of times so much is in our heads.
Right.
Get it down on paper or whatever our computer or whatever your process is. I think it's a lot easier to visualize. And so that's why I think I kind of have like been able to kind of help people. It's like kind of what's that next step? Everybody already
Yeah.
has the dream,
They do.
but what comes after that? And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of where people get a little bit lost, because they haven't really thought it out or mapped that part out yet.
That's right. I think a lot of times I think people just I think they disregard what they're actually good at, and they kind of get in
Mhm.
like this competitive mindset, or they just want to do the thing that's gonna
Yeah.
bring them, where they can make the most money, where it's not so much about making them the most money at
Yeah.
this time, especially like if you have a gift, especially like with you, right?
Yeah.
You're knowing your value, what your worth, that you're good at connecting with people, you can
Right.
network. um and then you said you have the gift of gab, and so now God is giving you this, you recognize it, let me make this work for me, and so I can just
Right.
operate in my passions. And
Right.
so helping people identify those things, whether it's just creating a list of everything that you're good at, everything
Yeah.
that's tugging at your heart to do. All right.
Yep.
Let's let's create a
Yeah.
plan and make you go and help you get with the things that you want.
That part. Like when I go to talk to young people, they always want to ask money, right? Like, how much are you making? And what's the
Yeah.
money? I say, hey, you want to make money? I say, how are we gonna get there? What are we gonna do? Because you
Right.
don't even know money. That's the easy part, but how are you gonna get there? That's the harder part. That's why I said like about mapping it out. And like you said, kind of that competitor mindset. But you said it, like once people kind of get the plan on paper,
Yeah.
what's next. So like I want to be an NFL player, like from young boys I talk to. Let's map it out. How are we gonna get there? What are the steps that we need to get there?
Yeah.
What's recruiting going to look like? What's our highlight video going to look like? Are we working with the agency? Are we in an NIL state now where we're making money in high school? Like, how are we going to get there? All right. We'll
Right.
plan all that out. And then also, again, what happens after the NFL? Because the NFL doesn't last forever.
It
What happens
doesn't.
after that? Right. So, how are we going to plan for that? And like you said, once I think you put it down on paper, it's a lot easier for folks to visualize and really see, like, oh, dang, okay,
Yeah.
you need to kind of make something, for this, and maybe you'll become an NFL team president one day. Maybe you'll become a head
Right.
coach, maybe
That's
you'll
right.
be an agent, there. But whatever it is, it's like, again, just making that plan. And then also knowing, though, that plans are subject to change
That's
and
right.
sometimes TBD, and knowing that you're going to have to pivot sometimes in those plans because things don't always go according to plan.
That's
Life
right.
does not go. So how will you still, be able to meet your goal? And that's the biggest thing for folks to realize is it's also easy to plan stuff out, but it can be harder to have to navigate and shift,
Yeah.
changes that happen in life because we can't
Right.
control things. And how do you still, though, again, be successful in whatever you're trying to reach that destination?
Yeah. One of the things that really helped me identify like my why and my
Mhm.
purpose was, it was at one point it used to be kind of shallow,
Mhm.
and then I thought about like, what is that one thing that like I'm willing to die for, like, because you
Mm.
think about like Martin Luther King, he had a mission and he was willing to die for it, and it got to the point where he was like, even in his last speech,
Yeah.
it was like he spoke from the heart with so
Yeah.
much power and conviction.
Yes.
And so when you think about something that you're so passionate about, and it actually it gets to the point where it's not about you, it's about the other people. It's
Yes.
it's you don't have no selfish ambitions whatsoever. It's about
Right.
helping other people.
That part.
Um, and
Part.
so it's huge. And that's where the transformation actually starts to begin, because now you got to
Yeah.
do some things that you never thought you could do, and just leaning
Yeah.
on a whole nother higher power.
I think
It's
that purpose is so important. Like for
yeah.
me, my mother grew up, when I used to spend my summers in Jackson, Mississippi, and my grandmother grew up not too far from where Medgar Evers was lived and was killed, right?
Uh-huh.
And for me, I think knowing the plight and struggle of folks so early, when you go back to like, purpose,
Yeah.
for me, I had a greater purpose because I knew the people that had come before me. Like there was no option for me to fail because I knew what people again had went through for me to be able to have this right and the rights that we have. And so I
Yeah.
think just knowing, I think your story, like one of my favorite quotes, our history lies in our past lies in our future. Right. And so you have to know the past to understand where you're going. And so for me, I'm so motivated,
Right.
from older Black folks in the community that have seen and went through, you know, stuff that many of us probably can even bear, right? Or
Right.
can't even think of, right? The unfathomable. And I
Yeah.
think that's what my purpose is. Like, how can I continue to, carry the torch? One of the first, I'm big into poetry. And when I was younger, I wrote a poem and it started off with, I am the dream and the hope of a slave. I mean, I had sharecroppers in my family not too far removed,
Yeah.
right? So
Wow.
knowing that plight, knowing what they went through, for me, I had to carry that baton and torch because too many people sacrifice too much for me not to. But again, that's my purpose. Everyone's purpose is going to look different.
Right.
But for me, coming from a Black Southern family and knowing what they went through,
Mm,
it's a lot.
it
And
is.
so I knew, like, what my grandmother went through, scrubbing floors and stuff, my
Mm-hmm.
parents through, for me to be able to afford that. I have a little sister. So anybody that's an older child also knows usually like that torch you carry.
Yeah.
There's a lot counting on you.
Right.
That's my purpose. And, for like, how can I continue the story? How can I be the next freedom fighter in my own way, to
Right.
make sure I'm helping people that look like me. So that's why once you find your purpose, it's going to help so much. That's why people say, how are you so high energy? Like, I know my purpose.
Right.
I know that value. And
Yeah.
I try to push and propel that. And I want you to feel that. Like Kelsey's not just telling me this. She feels this. She felt that. She's real to this. She's true
Yeah.
to this, not new to it. She knows what she
She
wants.
knows.
She's gonna find a way to get there.
Oh wow, man. The stories, and you talking about your family as far as being sharecroppers, and I'm like, man, because my folks, they're from Louisiana, small part called
Get
Hammond.
that connection too, yeah.
And so I just never forget just riding with my uncle one day. And this was back in, I think this was like 2009, 2010. I just
Yeah.
happened to be out there and we were rolling. And he was like, so he actually took me to this one neighborhood. It was like, hey, Derek, this is an area that we call Pumpkin Hill.
Mm,
And he said, this is an area where we would not be caught at after such and such time. Like when the lights, we made sure that we were up out of there because I mean, there was just no telling what could happen. And
yeah.
so when you think about that, and that's like only a generation, two
That's what I'm
generations
saying.
away, right?
We're not that
That's
far removed from a lot of
no,
stuff that happened in this story.
it's
Yeah,
not. So
real.
I'm like, man, you just cannot take life for granted. And so whatever
Yeah,
you've got, yeah, deploy it and share it.
you have to.
Yeah, you
Like,
have to.
no day is promised, but with the days that you have, what can you give?
Right.
What can you do to help? And
That's
that's
it.
again, and I can't tell enough, like know your history, know where you
Yeah,
come from, know the plight of your people. Because if that doesn't inspire you, I do not know what will.
that's
But like I
right.
said, Black folks have been through a lot in this country, still going through a lot in this country. And so for me, it's like, carrying some of that and kind of what can I do to kind of help give back to
Yeah.
that next generation? Because each generation should hopefully have it better, right, than the last. But and then Mississippi, New Orleans roots. My dad took my sister. I remember taking her money, Mississippi, and money should resonate bells with everybody. If you know the story of Emmett Till, and for all of us, just know that story first off, what that mother went through, what he went through. If that doesn't
Mm,
make you feel emotional, I don't know what will. I
yeah.
went on a trip. I think it was last year. I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it's my first time going to Tulsa. And they took us to Black Wall Street. And I remember
Mm,
like they're telling us how Black Wall Street. I had heard about, but going there is a
yeah.
lot. And there's not a Black owned store there now, which is even more heartbreaking. But I remember they told us how the dollar would go around in like 27 blocks, 27 times in that community. And then you realize all that success, right, with that white
Yeah.
hatred. Why kind of obviously the massacre occurred. And still how, if you notice now, they're still fighting we have about 3 survivors, I believe now, over 100 that are still fighting for
Wow.
rights. in reparations from what happened. But when you stand there and really know, like, again, the Black success that was there, that was fearful for others, and they tried to, like, obviously get rid of that. And now to this day, how Tulsa is still a segregated city, and how still to this day, what was once Black is not. It makes you, at least it made me feel away. And I was
Right.
just emotional in that moment. And again, it reminded me of my purpose and that baton in torch,
Yeah.
that I'm meant to carry. And that's why tell people all the time too, as much as you can, get out, not just know the history, but feel the history,
Yeah.
right? Go to
That's
where Dr.
good.
King was killed.
That's
It'll make
good.
you feel away, and your kids probably feel away if they know that story, know that plight, again, of what came before them, to know what
Yeah.
they could be and what people went through for them to be able to be.
Yeah. Ooh, we. Ooh. That's
Just a
yeah.
little dive.
Right, right. Yeah, but you have, like you said, you have to feel it.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
If you don't feel it, you can't tie or connect some kind of emotion to it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
you
that's
have
what
to.
motivates me. It's that simple. Like you said, just go in there. And again, when you hear something, when you go there and you just, again, let's see what people went through.
Yeah,
If that doesn't touch you, like I said, I don't know what will. And
that's
so I
right.
just know I have a greater purpose.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and that to me fought before me for me to give up, or for me to quit, or for me to just not do for others.
Yeah. Hmm. Woo-wee.
It's real.
Yeah,
It's real. That's
it's
all I know.
real. Yeah.
All I know
Hmm.
how to be.
Bef Before I let you go,
Mhm.
um, I just I know you kind of touched on it before, talking about success, and success is different for every, for different people.
Right.
Um, but when you think about your own life, and what you're doing right now, this phase in your life that you're at,
Yeah.
how would you actually define success?
Ooh. My high school senior yearbook quote was, "What we do in life echoes throughout eternity." And yes, I still remember my high school yearbook quote. I
Yeah.
told you I love quotes, and mine was meaningful. I wasn't just picking one to be
Right.
cool. And so I think for me, it's different things. But like I said, I mean, if I drop, any one of these days,
Mhm.
again, it's the people I impacted, in
Yeah.
touch. So for me, it's, I want to make sure that I'm setting up like my internship programs that I run. How do I make sure that those are lasting long after me? So I have a HBCU connection program. So how to make sure I'm giving back and making sure HBCU from students from historically Black colleges and universities are set up for a
Yeah.
pipeline of media,
Wow.
and then sports media, communications, and PR internship. How do I make sure that interns are actually having real world hands-on access in the media industry when everybody's asking them for experience,
Yeah.
I'm not giving them a chance to learn that experience? I think, how does that continue? I think for my students, like, what can they take from what I've taught them, and how can they share that out, right? Like, I would
Right.
love, how can they share that back out to the world with what they're learning? That's important. How do I make sure that we have ethical, real, prepared journalists going out into the world to
That's
cover
right.
the stories, right? And making sure that we get an onus back on, again, media, real reporting,
Yeah.
accurate news, factual news. That's really important to me. I think in just the broadcast world too, how do I let my stories live on? Like, one of the things I love, I interview like a lot of former players or athletes. Sam Cunningham comes to mind because before he died, Sam Bam Cunningham, if you know his story, you think about the integration of Alabama football
Yeah.
and SEC sports. And Sam Bam Cunningham was a large reason why. And so, interviewing somebody like him, a pioneer. And of course, little did I know that he would, pass shortly after, but he got to get his story straight on my show. And so it's really important to me. So how does my broadcast work, again, really live on and tell a story that's going to be meaningful to somebody? Because there was some stuff that like was said in his story that he's like, I'm gonna be on the record and I want to get this straight.
Yeah.
He had a chance to get that straight, and he had a
Yeah.
chance to speak on it. So how can my broadcast work like live on and again just tell stories and set stuff straight?
Yeah.
I think is also probably important. And then I think just the last thing for success, I want to be happy. Like at the end of the day, I want to be able to go home and smile and be proud of what I've done. Right. So how
Right.
can I make sure that like I'm happy? And being happy to me means being real with myself, which means being real with, everything that I want to do. So like, and that's why I said for me, it's important each day I'm doing something working towards my goals, like something I can check off and say,
Right.
all right, going to get me one step closer to the goal. So
Yep.
whatever that is, I need to make sure I'm doing that. So for me, I think it's that, but a lot of my success, like I said, is more so like what I've done to reach other people,
Uh-huh.
to again legacy, to hopefully help it live on and
That's
pass.
it.
I can't take all this with me, right? I can't take all the
Yeah.
knowledge. So
You
I have
can't.
to pass that. And I want somebody else to pass that. So how does that baton, how does that pipeline, how does it keep continuing? I think that's when Kelsey Nicole Nelson will be happy, with some
Woo-wee.
of that hopefully success, in terms of success that, I'll be happy with.
That's awesome. And so real, just real brief or real
Yeah.
quick. Here you have this multimedia company. Um, like, do you, what's the vision for it? What do you envision that being? Because I mean, you think about, I mean, because you mentioned Oprah Winfrey and she has her own
Mm,
network.
she
And I was
does.
like, that was one of the first things I kind of thought about. Like, okay, here
Look,
she is in
K&N
multimedia.
would be a good network. I
You
got
know
the
what I'm
initials
saying?
already for
For real.
it. And it's funny you say that because, kind of how K&N stuck when I was younger, everyone would call me K&N and they'd be like, this is like a spinoff of CNN, because you're your
Right.
own network, Kelsey. Like, and that's kind of how that started. And of course, it just happened to be my initials. And for me, I will tell you, a network isn't the vision. Like, and I would love that obviously for the future. But
Yeah.
why I started my multimedia company, Listening with K&N, is because again, I needed to build a seat at the table because no seats were being offered for me.
Right.
I started it because essentially, again, as a Black woman looking to get into the sports industry, and I was first applying to those jobs, no one wanted to give me an opportunity behind the mic. Nobody wanted to give me an opportunity behind the mic.
Yeah.
So I had to create my own. And then what I realized is the power in creating your own is that you can do what others didn't do for you. So that's when I realized, oh, I can give that opportunity to others that didn't have it and offer.
Yeah.
And that's when the internship program started for me giving back. And so I think the vision is a lot of young people reach out to me all the time, like, hey, Kelsey, how can I work with you? Or how can I get experience? This is a way that they can get experience, right? Because
Yeah.
before it's like, how can I have a structured way for them to get experience? How can they actually get class credits? How can they actually learn? And I've been interviewing so many amazing candidates lately. It's like, I almost wish I could take them all. And I tell them
Yeah.
no. I said, I'm big into quality though, rather than quantity. And I also know how much I can manage and handle. And I don't want to do anybody a disservice, right? So right
Right.
now I'm at 10 for one of my internship programs and 2 for my other business. But all that to say, I think, my biggest thing in terms of like, what I want this to be and do is I want to change the narrative. I want us to
That's
be able to
right.
tell our stories. On my show, it's real. Like when PR folks or somebody reaches out to me, can we have the questions? There's no questions to give you in advance because I don't have them prepared in advance.
Yeah.
I go off of what they say,
Yeah.
right? So whatever they say is kind of that's going to be how we change the tone of narrative. I don't have a time limit on it really. We're just going to talk or our
Yeah.
audio show, but on the live stream show, we're just talking. Like I
Right.
talked to Michael for like 3 hours and we had just first met. And a lot of times people see us talking. It's the first time I've met this person. Like, so you're
Yeah.
really seeing the full actuality. And so I think that's what I really want people to see, like what it's like to have real conversation with the person and to really know somebody's story. Cause I do think we have lost the art of having a conversation. I
That's
can't
right.
tell you how many people don't know how to conversate or converse. I'll say that's the better word, real word, converse, how to
Yeah.
converse with people. It's a lost art. And like knowing how to connect with somebody to me is like one of the most fundamental principles that we all need.
Right.
Uh, especially if you travel, like you better know how to connect with anybody from the flight attendant to like the gate agent to
Right.
whoever you're coming across, right? You need to be able to have a conversation. And so many people don't. So I'm hoping that, the show pushes that and pronounces that. But again, I really hope the show pushes that a Black woman can lead in the sports industry, that a
That's
Black woman
right.
can do in the sports industry, and that a Black woman can be in the sports industry. So for me, I would love again. My goal is not to just become a national name, it's to become an international name. And I've been
International.
blessed to go on international shows, but I want everybody to hopefully see what we're building and what we're creating. So that's the goal I think for Listening with K&N. I want to get my merchandise back out there and people rocking the gear, but people to really know our vision and purpose again, to
Yeah.
kind of to give a voice to to the people who feel like they're not heard or the people
Right.
who get their story straight,
Yeah.
instead of and just to build again, bring back real conversation in a journalistic matter, right? So many also, if you say something, that doesn't mean I'm not going to follow up on it. I want to know.
Right.
So in a journalistic way, right? How can we have that real conversation? And that's kind
Yeah.
of what I want to bring back to folks. So hopefully soon there will be a K&N network, somewhere for folks to tune in, listen to,
That's
watch,
right.
and support. But for now, there's LIW K&N, so they can still watch and
There you
support.
go. There you go. That is good. That is good. K&N coming to y'all soon.
There you go.
Coming to you
You
soon.
heard it here first.
So if anybody wants to contact you, reach you, or just follow you, where
Yeah.
can they go?
Easiest way is my website, kelseynicolenelson.com. If you want to get in contact with me, just go ahead and fill out that contact form. It goes right to me and only me right now.
Yeah.
So check that out. On social media, just The Real K Nelson, very active on there. LinkedIn and Facebook, just my name, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. Again, want to connect in and just be in fellowship with people. And then if you want to follow the podcast, just listen in with Canon.com. And then you can listen in with Canon.com anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. But again, I hope to connect with folks and just shop it up, talk shop, talk sports, whatever it is that I can hopefully do to just connect with people. At the end, I'm a connector. I'm a storyteller.
That's what good. That is good. Y'all heard it first, ladies and gentlemen, from Kelsey Nicole Nelson, KNN. Yes, absolutely.
Just as fun.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. You listen, you have to say her whole name because her name is her brand, y'all. Her name is her brand. And so there were so many takeaways, but one, I love the fact that she kept it moving. She always pressed. And I know a lot of times rejections and setbacks can lead to unexpected blessings and opportunities. So don't give up on your dreams and trust that hard work and patience will pay off. Absolutely. Thank you again, Kelsey. Y'all definitely touch base with her. Social media links are down below. Contact her, reach out, support her endeavors, and hey, it's your turn. It's your turn. I just want to thank you all for watching this video. I'm excited about your growth and your transformation quest to become the person God has created you to be. So I will definitely see you in the next video, and hit the subscribe button to hear also. Why not you? We cannot become what we need if we remain where we are. Y'all have a blessed week, and I'll see you next time. D Wells, I'm out.